하이델베르그 M. 네카 Your Travel Guide and Souvenir 하이델베르그 하이델베르그 캐슬 The women's quarters. This belongs to the same group of buildings as the Rupreet building and is separate from it by the open space in front of the library building with its lovely oriel window. The ladies of court once lived in two plain and simple upper stories, hence the name of the building. The heavily bolted royal flower houses the wine cellar. Although the roof and the upper floors were badly damaged in the 30 Years' War, they were hastily repaired. However, they were to be totally destroyed in the War of the Grand Alliance, 1689-93, after which they were never reconstructed. Today, the building comprised only one story at ground level, and this is how called the King's Hall. At 34 meters long, 16.7 wide, and 7.4 high. It's the largest single room in the castle. It was dedicated in 1534 and served as the venue for splendid ceremonial occasions until it was superseded by the newer reception room in the Hall of Mirror building and Otto Haley building. As thereafter served as a tournament ground for nightly contest and later as a workshop of stone masons, as well as containing other workshops for coopers and farriers, in order that these artisans could work regardless of the weather. Carl Schroeder had the remaining walls of the destroyed upper floors demolished, and the large hall was simply roofed over. On the occasion of the 400th anniversary of its construction, the King's Hall underwent a slow-going renovation so that it now provides space for nearly 500 visitors on gala occasions and for theater performances. The library buildings. After Ludwig V had held the mighty west wall, founding the so-called artillery garden built, he used the outer bailey, which now served no useful purpose, for the construction of a library building between the Rupert building and the women's quarters. Two of its outer walls were built up in the inner and outer castle walls, respectively, and thus the first step was taken toward extending the living accommodation beyond the confines of the medieval castle. The new building had a square ground plan, and its main function was to provide a home for the private library of the prince-electors. At the time this building was elected, the famous Palatine Library was already occupying the galleries of the Church of the Holy Spirit. Its mighty surrounding walls, 3 meters thick at the base and still 1.5 meters thick in the upper story are an indication that the Prince Elector's mint, along with his art collection, were also housed here. The first floor consists entirely of a spacious library hall, which had a 6.6 meter high star vaulted ceiling supported by a central pillar. Today, the unattractive Gothic oriel window in the top floor comprise the only outer decoration of the building on the side facing the castle courtyard. Although the facade is somewhat enlivened by the console and beam holes of the two wooden galleries that are still visible. This part of the castle was recently the theme of some controversy when an old weeping willow tree near the small fountain was felled to allow the recessed area to serve as the stage for productions during the summer festival. However, the resulting protest could do nothing to bring back what many considered to be an ornament of this rather bleak corner of the courtyard. Other buildings by Ludwig V. The palace here you can now buy ticket for guided tour of the castle interior used to be the watch room for the soldiers of guard duty, while the neighboring well hall had a 16-meter deep well that was fed by spring water from the Konglish hill and its surroundings. The pillars are in one piece, monolithic, and are the oldest structural features of the castle. They were taken from Salome's ruined royal palace in Ingelheim, about 70 miles northwest of here, but they may be much older, being probably of Roman origin. The buildings adjoining the well hall of the west contained various workshops and storehouses, including the bakehouse and slaughterhouse, as well as the main kitchens, which were left roofless after the destruction of the War of the Grand Alliance. Today, a fine restaurant and cafe occupy this part of the castle. The adjoining Ludwig building typifies Ludwig V's approach as a builder, always preferring the straightforward and the practical to anything smacked of pomp. This residence building dates from 1524 and was built in the simplest possible style, initially having 3 stories. The coat of arms above the entrance doorway is the only decorative element in the structure. Built on the lower wall of its predecessor, the palace at the time extended as far to the north as to the south, so that the stair tower was more or less in the middle. The building was hastily repaired after the ravages of war in the 17th century, but like the neighboring palaces of Otto Helly and Frederick II, it was the victim of a stroke of lightning in 1764. The Hall of Mirror Building, Glasner Sablo. This building, which was erected during the reign of Ludwig V's successor, the world traveler Frederick II, revealed the transition from the Gothic style to that of the Renaissance. At the arcade, the stair tower on the right, and the slant projecting side wing with a sundial and ornamented stepped gable exhibit, a successful mixture of the both types of architecture. The easternmost section of this palace is concealed by the later Otto-Halley building, Frederick's building, of its name to the splendid banqueting hall on the upper floor. The north wall of which was covered with Venetian glass, an extravagant luxury in those days. The fire resulting from the lightning strike in 1764 lasted 4 days and took its greatest toll in this palace. The wooden ceilings were completely destroyed, so that only the outer walls were left standing. The wall facing the courtyard is adorned with a coat of arms of Frederick II and his wife. The middle one shows the imperial orb between the Palestine lion and the Bavarian diamond pattern. Emperor Charles V awarded these arms to this prince-elector on his succession to office to indicate his rank as Archdiocese of the empire. The date 1549 marked the year in which the palace was completed. The arms of Frederick's wife, Princess Dorothea of Denmark, are divided into two, and like those of her husband, used to be gilded and decorated the magnificent colors. A simple flag on the projecting annex commemorates Count Charles de Greenberg, who made the preservation of the ruined castle his life's work, and lived for many years in the habitable rooms of this building as the castle warden.